All right. So, as you guys know, we're going to be talking about Sumerian government. For government was in charge of all of the building projects. They built the city-states, they built the houses, they built the roads, they built everything. That's what the government was there to do. As a review for the definition of a city-state, it is an independent city and the surrounding countryside ruled by one king. Remember when we saw that picture of a city-state, and it had a wall that surrounded it, and it was controlled by one king. It didn't belong to any other higher nations. The government did control irrigation projects. The irrigation is a system of channels or canals that would take water from the river and bring it to the farm fields. This way, you don't have to farm right next to the river. You can move your farm field a little bit further over and still get a bountiful crop because the water is being moved for you. Remember, the rivers that they're going to be utilizing in ancient Mesopotamia, in particular Sumer, would be the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. And the government, of course, made laws in which we're going to look at with King Hammurabi later. That name will come up later, King Hammurabi. Continuing on Sumerian government, the priest kings they ruled the family dynasties. And a dynasty is a system where if I were the king and I died, my son would become the king after him. And then his son would then become the king. And then his son, and then his son, and the family would be the way that the kingdom would be passed down to the next person. It would be through the lineage of the men. They're called priest kings because they weren't just in charge of the government, but they were also in charge of religion. So while we have a separation of church and state today in the United States, the ancient Sumerians had quite the opposite. Government and religion were one in the same, and they worked together at all times. A guy named Gilgamesh was one of the most famous of these priest kings, and we're going to read the epic Gilgamesh later on in this unit. I think you'll enjoy that story. It's pretty interesting. The Sumerians did have military forces at each of their city-states, and they fought against each other quite often for more territory. The more land you get, the more farming you have. The more farming you have, the more trading you have. And then the more trading that you have, the more money that you have. And then it keeps going. The more money that you have, the more power you have. So therefore, land equals power. And we've talked about that before. So the city-states would often fight each other for more territory and more power.